What's going on, guys? What's going on? We got to set some shit up, man. We got to get up into it. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, boys. Uh-oh. What's that look like now? Not good, boys. Not good. Not good. Make it a little bit bigger. There we go. That's what I'm talking about, boys. Fucking gone
We'll be
gotcha.
arguing that Stephen's style of rhetoric makes the political climate much more polarized.
Nice.
Stephen, of course, will have a chance to defend and respond to your approach. Hannah, you can start us off.
So, Destiny,
What's up, girl?
you have made statements such as conservatives need to be afraid of getting killed when they go to their
what up,
events so that they
Lou?
turn down the temperature. You repeatedly refused to condemn the murder of Charlie Kirk. I won't woo over that. And after his murder, you tweeted making fun of his death, saying, I heard when he died he fed an entire village of vampires because so much blood came out of his neck.
Hell yeah.
Following the assassination attempt on Donald Trump, which killed one of his supporters, you said that you have zero sympathy for anything that happens to him or to anyone who supports him. You have also said that your only regret
so
is that
sore,
Trump's assassin didn't spend
Lou, I'm
enough
so
time
fucking
practicing
sore,
first.
dude. Oh,
So
my
there are a
left
couple of things
arm.
wrong with this. First, it's hypocritical. You cannot claim that Trump is a threat to democracy while simultaneously calling for political assassinations, which are a threat to democracy. You have also criticized left-wing figures for doing the same thing, like when the streamer Hassan tweeted a picture of a makeshift gun at Senator Tom
fuck.
Cotton.
We need an
Second,
ADC.
it's immoral. As a
Fuck.
public live streamer with millions of viewers, you make it more likely that someone in your audience will take matters into their own hands and start killing off conservatives. Especially as a study by the Center for Strategic and International Studies found that left-wing political violence now outnumbers right-wing political violence.
Oh, my God, dude. Jesus Christ, dude. There's no hope. These people do this to me.
Third, it's bad for the country. Your rhetoric amplifies
Ugh.
the extreme left and right. When conservative influencers like Matt Walsh say that the left wants me dead, your statements provide proof to that claim. There's a reason why extreme left-wingers like
Oh my
Hassan
God.
retweeted your statements about Trump's assassination. Political polarization destroys politics at the state and national
Oh, yeah, dude. The Cal Scrubby one, dude. That dude's pretty good, eh? He's kind of cooking.
levels when parties are unwilling to work together. And the Journal of Democracy finds a clear link between political polarization and political violence. And fourth, I think it's bad for you personally. You could be
Is she not aware that all of this could be applied to Trump and he can just say Trump did it first and then he's just merely a reaction to that? So if you're going to criticize me, you have to do so from also criticize Trump, which she probably wouldn't do.
much more influential than you are right now if you didn't make extreme and hateful statements like these. You have a history of doing this that exceeds Republican behavior. You were deplatformed from Twitch for inciting violence during the BLM
Hell
riots.
yeah, brother.
And the mayoral candidate with whom you campaigned with had to cut ties with you for your hateful rhetoric.
Hell
And since your
yeah,
goal is
dude.
to help Democrats, I'd say that your rhetoric harms the movement that you claim to support.
He literally got a Democrat
Ultimately, you are personally
elected.
responsible for the extreme and divisive political climate that you critique. Your rhetoric inflames the American political climate. And I think that you have a net negative impact on the political space.
Wow, that's a lot
Jeez.
of stuff. Yeah. Hit her, Destiny.
Okay.
What you got, dude?
So for my response to this is something that I've been stressing to people. There are two
a fast
things
boy.
that people see, and there's a third thing that people don't see. When it comes time to be civil in a conversation, both sides have to agree to that. One side can't agree, and the other side not agree, and one side can't force agreement on that. And this is a thing that conservatives have been relying on liberals not understanding for decades. When one person, comes into an area to start a fight with another person, that other person fighting back is not being hypocritical.
I know, dude.
is
How
not
are you
being
gonna do,
immoral,
bro?
and is certainly
Well,
not
enjoy your
engaging in the
vacation,
same
man.
action as the person who came in to start the fight. So when it comes to speaking about, say, you talk about how I never never condemned the murder of Charlie Kirk, or I never said that the murder of Charlie Kirk is bad. It's actually not true. On that Piers episode where I was fighting with all the conservatives about it, I think twice on that show I said, yeah, nobody should be getting killed for political violence in the United States, but the right will not say this. And that is an unacceptable world where one side of this country has continuously, over and over again, disavowed political violence. I'm talking about like the political leaders. I'm talking about the Joe Bidens, the Barack Obamas. I'm talking about the differences when the assassination attempt was made against Donald Trump. Joe Biden gave a speech. He didn't blame either side. He said that everybody just needed to bring things down. He didn't mention that the shooter was Republican. He didn't blame Trump for his rhetoric.
True.
When Donald Trump was supposedly being hunted by Iran, Biden increased his Secret Service personnel, even though he had no obligation to. Meanwhile, Donald Trump stripped Secret Service protections from Kamala Harris and other Democrats as soon as he was in office because he, I won't say what his motivations were. I don't even know if he knows what his motivations are sometimes. And Donald Trump continues to do one-sided attacks against only one section of the country when it comes to calling for people to stop being violent. He went on Fox and Friends a day or two after Charlie Kirk was dead, and he said that when the left wing does violence, it's because they're evil. When the right wing does violence, it's just because they're just tired of the left wing doing it. When Biden was running for president, he had to disavow all the violence of the BLM protests. When Donald Trump ran for president the second and third time, he did it with the promise of pardoning every single January 6ther and every single person around him that was engaged in seditious conspiracy or a number of other crimes that were doing it to further Trump's interests. And he followed through with all of those pardons.
Holy shit.
When it comes to violent rhetoric,
that's cool, bro.
I'll make a lot of jokes.
Are you like froggy about
conservatives
it?
Supposedly make a lot of jokes. They said, I remember when Elon bought X that comedy was legal again. Apparently it's not, because I catch a lot of heat for some of my tweets. But they have no problem when it comes time to making jokes about Paul Pelosi, when he was almost beat to death by a guy in his house with a hammer, only because the cops showed up. The guy didn't get to go through with it. They have no problem making jokes or conspiracy theories about different shooters. Donald Trump didn't even acknowledge the death of the two Minnesotan lawmakers, or the one Minnesota lawmaker and her husband, and the other one that was attempted to be killed. When he was asked about this in the White House, he said, who? He didn't even remember it. This environment is not equal. So all this is said, and the most common response to me is basically, well, aren't you just making it worse? So I don't think that standing there and allowing yourself to have the most unbelievably inflammatory, hateful, disgusting, threatening remarks made at you as a side over and over and over again by one side and remaining quiet, I don't think that there is any virtue in that. I think insofar as you allow yourself to be ran over and destroyed by one side that has absolutely no limitations on how they conduct themselves, I just don't see what the virtue is in that. I've heard people online who have said things like, I was going to make this joke about this particular thing, but I know if I say this, Destiny's going to come at me and make this comment about it, so I'm not going to say anything about it. I think it's good that if you're a conservative and you read something that I say and that really, really pisses you off, really gets the snowflake twinkling or whatever, if that happens, good. I think you should feel upset. And maybe, just maybe, the next time Trump makes an unhinged tweet or truth, maybe a conservative stops and thinks, maybe it's not okay to just support these statements as trolls or memes or epic jokes. And maybe if I'm trying to hold a YouTuber I'm watching online more accountable for his speech than I am the president of the United States, maybe there's something that's deeply wrong and flawed with that system that the conservatives could step back and take a look at.
Well, hell yeah, Lou. I'm so excited for you, bro.
Okay. So what I'm not calling for is for you or for Democrats at large to remain quiet, right? What I think I'm clearly calling for you is to not do the same thing that you're critiquing conservatives and Republicans for doing. If you think that's bad when Trump says inflammatory rhetoric, or if a conservative calls for a Democrat to be killed, you can no longer criticize that practice when you then turn around and say, I actually want the conservatives to be being killed, and I want Trump to be the one who's getting killed.
What kind of dumb...
You recognize that my position is not the same as them, though, right? That when they say it's funny and hilarious when the left gets killed and we're going to never recognize our side, that when I say, oh, okay, well, I'm going to copy the same stuff you do until you're willing to mutually accept that we stop, that these positions aren't the same, because they're never willing to stop, right?
Okay, so do you think that that's what's going to happen? You think that you going out there and saying conservatives need to be killed is going to lead to the conservatives saying, oh, yeah, I really want to compromise with this person.
Well, so
I want to work together with the Democratic Party.
So I've never said that conservatives need to be killed. Okay, I've never said that.
Wait, so you said specifically that they need to be afraid of getting killed so that they turn down the temperature. But how is someone afraid of getting killed unless there's a threat to their life?
Sure. So, if you saw more than just what Jesse Waters decided to show on his program on Fox, the entire conversation I'm having there is that when conservatives talk about violence violence in the United States, it's like a sexy, fun thing for them. And when liberals talk about it, it seems to be more of like a fearful thing, like, hey, we all need to stop. When I hear conservatives talk about violence in the United States, they seem excited for it. And I think there's no fear there, and I think they should be afraid. There was never a call for violence. And if you listen to anything I've said, like, I'm out here doing these events. Clearly, I don't want people getting shot out here because I'm probably going to be the first one to go if that actually happens. What I'm saying is that, like, you can't speak about these things. Like, there needs to be a healthy sense of fear that, like, if we continue to escalate, we're going to end up in, like, some civil war status because conservatives act fearless when it comes to their rhetoric.
Yeah, but again, the same thing I would say, which I don't think was addressed, is do you think it's an effective strategy to get one side to negotiate with you to say that you're okay with them dying and it doesn't bother you if they get killed?
I think it's more effective than allowing them to do it, like, unimpugned, yeah.
Wouldn't it be more effective to say it's bad when they do it and that's how you can win voters to then get elected?
What? That didn't work last time, did it?
Oh, so you think just because Biden lost one election, that means that MAGA Republicans rule the country and that Democrats have no chance of winning unless they become authoritarian themselves?
I think Democrats will win the next set of elections, but I think the fact that Trump won says something is deeply wrong with the American public right now and is deeply wrong with our discourse. If Kamala would have won all 7 swing states, it wouldn't have been as much of a landslide as it should have been in that election. The reality is that the president makes on a daily basis unhinged tweets that would dwarf the entirety of an ordinary Democratic president's tweet history combined. I can probably find something he's tweeted today or yesterday that he said that's worse than the totality of everything said in his entire administration for Obama, for Biden, for any of the Clintons. But Trump won his second election. So what happened there? Do you think that there's some virtue in Democrats just continuing to nod their heads and play along with Republicans and not act like all of the unhinged, insane rhetoric is coming from one side?
Yeah, again, I don't think that Democrats just need to go along with things. I think that criticizing one side, saying that they're engaging in some authoritarian practices or that they have very inflammatory rhetoric is an effective tactic, especially when you're not doing the same thing. You lose your ability to criticize one side if you advocate for your political side of the aisle to do the very same thing to conservatives.
If my position isn't the same, how do you lose the ability to advocate for it? If somebody comes into a room screaming and I say, okay, well, I'm going to scream at the guys, I guess, until you stop,
I know,
our positions aren't the same.
dude.
That person is just screaming for no reason. My position is responsive to their position. I don't like that's how civility works. It's responsive to the other person's civility.
But what you're arguing is what, for instance, like Trump and conservatives are doing is a threat to democracy, right?
Yes.
And then you're saying, therefore, Democrats ought to do something which is also a threat to democracy. Do
It's
you see
better
how you
to have
lose the ability
you
to
don't-
criticize
but
the first thing?
That's like saying that like if the North goes to war against the South, they lose the ability to criticize the South for seceding from the Union. I disagree with that. If one side is going to conduct themselves in a violent manner, then the other side should be able to conduct themselves
So
similarly.
just to be clear, you think if Democrats get into office, they should do a January 6th style insurrection because conservatives already did it, right? So why not just let fire go, right?
If we do it, hopefully we don't fail like they did.
Okay,
I think that they should be. I think that there need to be severe repercussions for the current administration, up to and including anything that related to the Department of Justice, related to investigations, related to what maybe creative interpretations of the law, like the conservatives have taken upon themselves to do. Yeah, because right now the pattern that we've set in the United States is that if you're a conservative, you can do basically whatever you want, and at the end of the day, the Democrats are going to show up to not only clean up your mess, but pretend you didn't do it and then try to play along with you.
So then what bothers me about that is Democrats really can't claim to be the party of democracy when you, again, make statements like this that, it'd be fine and actually preferable for us to create an insurrection that would overthrow the democracy to instate forever democratic rule, right? So would you agree that you can no longer criticize Trump or conservatives for being a threat to democracy?
No, because my position is not the same as theirs. I'm willing to play democracy as long as they're willing to play democracy, but I'm not going to play democracy while they play.
You won't defend democracy when another side is attacking it.
One side can't defend civility. It has to be two sides.
So that's just not true. I mean, the way that our system works right now, I guess you are not a fan of this, but when you have a democracy in place, you can win elections, and then you can get rid of all the bad policies and the things that you don't like from the other side. And what I think is that your rhetoric is making it less likely that Democrats are going to win elections. Because if you say the ideal Democratic Party is one which calls for violence against conservatives or which says it's fine to, disobey democratic norms so long as the other side is doing it, then voters don't see a distinction between you and Donald Trump.
The end goal is that when the other side sees, oh, well, if we do this thing, the other side's kind of responsive to it, so maybe we shouldn't do this thing because it leads to a really bad world. The issue that I have right now is the world that you're advocating for is one where Democrats just continue to, say, okay, well, we're not going to engage in that because we want to have some, I guess, moral high ground, some imagined moral high ground, while...
Jesus Christ, man. Like, how you can't exist in a perpetual state of, like, getting fucking absolutely abused and then call it an equal playing field. I don't like her argument is that we did bad, but if you try to do bad against our bad, that's bad, and then we'll like, so like you want a blank check to do your bad and you don't care. So why the fuck do I care about your criticism of our actions? What? Well, she did. Oh my god, dude. So all bad. Like, bro. And plus, he's not even advocating for violence against people. He's just saying that Republicans need to cool it down. And we shouldn't be the ones to continuously, we shouldn't be continuously, placating to these people because it doesn't net us any benefit. What's up, dog? I'm gonna die! What up, pussy? What? No! I'm so dead! God damn it! Dude, I tried so hard, man. I got fucking rocked. Oh my god, dude. I'm calling hacks. Alright.
Republicans engage in the most insane rhetoric possible and don't suffer any electoral losses for it. You keep saying that, like, well, if you engage in the same rhetoric that they do, you're going to lose voters. They won the last election. I don't know what that means. That's like the weaker side saying if you do this thing that the other guy's doing, you're going to be weaker than he is, and he's already stronger than you.
But like you said, there's a difference between retaliation and starting a strategy to begin with. So if all the Democratic voters are voting for you because they believe in democracy and they believe in these norms, you take away the difference between you and Republicans when you start to engage in the same behavior that they are engaging with.
But there's still a difference. The difference is that the Democrats are willing to come back to the table and be adults if the Republicans are. And you say that, like, you're losing the voters. We already lost the voters. We lost the majority vote in the last election, and the first time in how long for the people that voted in the election. It doesn't seem like they care too much about it. It seems like they're more concerned with an executive that seems like it's championing the interests of the people with chants like lock her up, than they are about people caring about democratic norms. I think that it feels like the left isn't fighting for the American public when they just allow themselves to be steamrolled over and over and over again by a right whose rhetoric is getting increasingly unhinged.
Okay, so like just to clarify, you think it would be a good thing for Democrats electorally if they were to adopt the same rhetoric that Donald Trump or conservatives
That's not what
are
he's
currently
saying,
using,
you
like, on
dumb
a mass
bitch.
scale?
It would be better than just having them adopt it, yes.
Okay, so you think it's better, though, than what the Democratic Party is doing currently, which is criticizing Trump and the conservatives for having that type of rhetoric?
Yes, because even an electoral win, I don't think is a real win. When it's 50-50 with like the most authoritarian guy ever, with a guy who's making truths and tweets about having his political opponents hanged, and then people are like, well, sometimes YouTubers are being kind of mean. Like, this world is not equivalent to me. It's not rational. It's not sane. Like, a bare win over a guy who's joking about running for a third term, and he's only joking about it because he's probably never going to survive this term because he's so sick all the time. I don't think that's a huge political win for us.
Okay, but once again, I don't understand the criticism of Trump wanting Democrats to be hanged. If you think it's fine if a Democrat were to say that Republicans should be hanged, right?
He's not saying
if a guy was
that.
holding an explosive over here, and I'm holding a weight that's going to drop and hit an explosive over here, if he blows me up, our positions are not the same. If he never blows his dynamite up, I'll never drop the weight and blow mine up. I just watched Terminator 2, so I remember the scene where the guy blew all the people up, right? But this is, he keeps saying, Republicans keep making the same mistake, saying, you guys have the same position, so now you can't criticize them anymore. My position is responsive to their position.
Sure, but do you think that once you past that threshold. Like, say once Democrats
I
have done
hate
their own January 6th and we have
plan.
no democracy, you really think you can get back to the system that we had beforehand? That there's an
Tank.
effective way to de-escalate the system after you have engaged in escalating it?
I think that whatever comes after, even if it's a war,
So Donald Trump sets the field. Donald Trump sets the field. He sets all the players, and he's the only one that gets to play the game his way. Everyone else has to play by the rules. Everyone has to play nice. I don't understand how the party that's doing the most immoral shit right now gets to claim moral high ground, either both on the extreme left or the extreme right. It's insanity.
is preferable to a system where the next person thinks that they can act like Donald Trump too and get away with it over and over again. Because right now, the Republicans, in their mind, they should run another candidate that's just like Trump, but...
Oh my God, I am so fucking sore. Oh! Destiny is ultimately arguing not against for the next election or the midterms. And he doesn't care that, like, people are seeming to do the right thing now. That's not the thing that he's talking about. He's talking about holding them account so another Trump figure doesn't come up. I don't know how this is lost on people. It happened once. It got way too far. Innocent people are dying. Like, we should be proactive so that this never happens again. I don't know why this is so hard for people to understand. It is beyond my rationale. I don't get it.
Worse, because they haven't even paid any electoral consequences for it.
Stephen, are you calling for a war when you say the next person is better to have a war?
No, I'm not calling for what I'm calling for. What I would hope is that the president of the United States. I can't even believe that this is like a controversial statement. The president of the United States, if he was a moral human being, a man with integrity and honor, a leader of men, of people in the United States, should be able to say, all of us need to be less violent. That's like the most bare minimum decent statement in the world a person can make. But for some reason, the president can't make that statement, and conservatives are obsessed with criticizing the left anytime they say stuff that's even remotely approaching what the president of the United States is saying on a near daily basis, publicly, on social media, in 4K, like all broadcasted to the whole internet, not even said with shame, like behind closed doors.
Okay, well, again, my response to this. So your response is, well, when Democrats do it, it's just in retaliation. When conservatives do it...
That's not his response! He's saying that we cannot have a level playing field unless we agree to the same rules. Jesus Christ.
They started it, right? A conservative would say the exact same thing. Someone like Donald Trump would say the reason why I'm, making inflammatory statements is because Democrats are engaging in political violence, because they killed Charlie Kirk, and because, they want, like, Republicans to go to jail, and they tried to indict me and all this stuff. So the escalation comes on both sides. You can make the argument from either side.
You can. Like, if I stand at the bottom of a building and jump because I feel like I can't fly, and another guy says he can fly and he jumps off the building, there's a difference in truthfulness in these two statements. Republicans can pretend that the escalation has happened on both sides, but the record clearly demonstrates otherwise. Nobody was running around killing cops with a "I'm doing Joe Biden's orders" bumper sticker or whatever, or like "I'm here for Biden, he ordered me to be here." That's not true. All of the unhinged stuff comes from Trump, from the conservatives. The conservatives, the only reason people even know about what people on the left say is because the conservatives will find people on the far left and amplify. The average left-leaning person doesn't want kitty litter boxes in schools, but Joe Rogan is out here saying that they're all over the place.
But I agree with that. I would say that a lot of the extreme violence that we see does come from the extreme left, from people like, Hassan Piker advocate for violence, for instance. But as I said, you amplify those voices when you yourself support that violence. I don't think that the violence will be coming from these milquetoast liberals, but it will probably be coming from communists, from socialists, from authoritarians, from people who don't care about democracy fundamentally. And so by making violent statements, you're amplifying the voices of the people that you don't like, which is the extreme left and the extreme right.
Thank you to both debaters.
That was weak.
Thank you, Hannah, and thank you, Stephen. For our fourth and final round, the topic shifts to ethics and personal behavior. You ought to be vegan. Debating this with Stephen is Cole Haynes,
Cole Haynes.
the president of Allied Students for Animal Protection. Cole will be arguing that we have a moral obligation to be vegan because animals are morally significant and killing them for food is wrong. Stephen will be challenging this conclusion. Cole, you have the floor.
Thank you so much, Aiden. Thank you to Yale Effective Altruism for putting this on. And thank you to Destiny. As someone who's not a formal debater myself, I really appreciate your ability to just come here on the spot, come up with this on the fly as well. So, in 2020, over the course of a few months, pork producers in Iowa Falls packed over 1 million pigs into barns. They then shut off the ventilation and pumped in 150-degree steam. Video shows pigs screaming, collapsing and writhing in pain for nearly 3 hours before the barn finally fell silent. Shortly after, a new batch of pigs were loaded in. This event was, by all plausible accounts, a holocaust. And yet few people know what happened, let alone that this kind of thing happens constantly. 80 billion land animals a year, that's 200 million every day, are raised on factory farms in some of the worst conditions imaginable. These facts make eating animal products, in my view, one of the worst things a person will do in their lives.
What the fuck?
My argument is very simple. First, I claim that it is deeply wrong to cause enormous amounts of pain, suffering, and death, even to animals, for comparatively trivial benefit. This is a modest claim. It doesn't require controversial views about animal rights or how much moral status animals have. It supports some of our most basic intuitions. For instance, most of us would agree that it would be seriously wrong to light a cat on fire for the sake of hearing its screams.
Didn't even watch it yet.
My second claim is that in ordinary circumstances, when we buy or consume animal products, we cause massive amounts of suffering for trivial benefits. Consider some of the facts about factory farming as of 2025. Nearly all breeding pigs live in crates so small that they can't turn around. Piglets are castrated and mutilated without anesthetic. Many pigs arrive at slaughter with pneumonia. Transport alone kills hundreds of thousands. For broiler chickens, they're bred to grow so fast that most spend their lives in pain or are unable to walk. About 500,000 birds per year are boiled alive due to improper stunning methods in scalding tanks. Egg-laying hens live in cages smaller than a sheet of paper. Male chicks, about 7 billion a year, are killed on their first day of life because they're deemed unfit for the egg-laying hen industry. For years, scientific consensus has held that non-human animals experience pain and pleasure much like we do. As the 2012 Cambridge Declaration on Consciousness states,
I'm so
the weight
glad
of evidence
Trump
indicates that humans are not unique in possessing the neurological substrates that generate consciousness. What makes torture morally bad is the intrinsic character of the experience, the way it feels from the inside, not the species or intelligence of the victim. A typical meat eater causes animals to spend about 132,000 extra days, that's roughly 364 years, on factory farms. Causing 364 years of torture is presumptively wrong. So the question is, do we have a sufficiently good reason for doing this? For most of us, we clearly don't. Animal products taste great. I will be the first person to admit this. And they're probably better than plant-based products. But
at least he's willing to admit that.
Is clearly a bad justification for justifying
Trump's falling apart in real time.
Sentient beings.
It's actually beautiful,
especially
bro.
For someone like Destiny, with the platform that you have, the stakes are even higher. If you convince just 3% of your average viewers to go vegan, you could help spare roughly 210,000 animals from some of the worst misery ever experienced by sentient beings. So,
I mean, that's
my
a true
question to you,
statement,
Destiny, is,
realistically.
why aren't you vegan yet?
Oh, damn. Homie's got balls.
Okay, I think that there are two huge problems with veganism that I think vegans hand wave away, and they just kind of assume are one is that the thing doesn't matter, and then the second is that we just kind of take it for granted. So the first thing that I will say is it's strange to speak about moral ways to treat any class of things that will never themselves be able to conduct themselves in moral ways. I don't think that's a request that we would ever make of any group of people or any individual, that you would treat, some person or something or some entity that can never develop morality or any kind of moral systems on their own. So in a world with humans, we talk about farming a pig as being this deeply unethical thing, but if you remove the human aspect from it, you put the pig in the wild and some tiger, I don't think pigs and tigers live together, but whatever fucking animal eats pigs, right? If this thing were to encounter the pig and eat it from the nuts up or whatever, because based on the videos I've seen on YouTube, it's a real crazy way that they hunt, that somehow that situation is like a morally preferable one to factory farming. The reality is that given a world where humans don't exist, where factory farming doesn't exist, all of the same type of animal suffering basically exists,
True.
completely unstopped and unchecked by any animal, because nobody would even develop any moral system from these creatures until humans evolve that would ever check any of it. And so I don't know why there is a morally preferable world where animals exist that hunt other animals to the one that exists right now where humans factory farm animals, unless we just say animals themselves never develop the mind to have the agency, to have any kind of moral culpability for any of the actions that they take. I'm not aware of any vegans saying that we should be charging animals that are carnivorous with crimes that they murder another animal, but for some reason we consider it unethical if a human consumes one for food. The second issue has to do with this concept of a mind like ours. I'm aware that mammals all possess like similar substrates, similar parts of the brain that do the things that our brain does, but I think it's pretty clear that none of these animals seem to have developed a mind like ours, such that there is no emergent culture, no emergent like real language capacity or communication skills, or the ability to understand things in the past, present, and future, or in other areas at different parts of time. These are all like really sophisticated things that humans have developed, and I think also go into our understanding of things like pain and suffering as well. You can see an animal that gets hurt and it seems to have pain, and it might even develop some kind of like associative responses to stimuli in the environment, and it looks bad, and it pulls at our heartstrings, and I definitely understand that. But I mean, I would hearken to the first thing in that for the moral argument, in the wild, these animals will never develop these moral systems. And then to the second thing, to say that we understand that their understanding of pain or suffering is similar to ours is a statement that I just don't think we can make. I don't know if we'll ever be able to make that statement. We can't even see consciousness really in other people. We just kind of assume it's there when the parts of the brain are communicating, and they seem to have a conscious experience like ours. But to just automatically assume that animals that lack a whole bunch of other traits that humans have magically have that same capacity for pain or suffering, I just don't see where the argument would come from to support that statement.
So there's a lot to parse there. I guess the first thing I would ask is, I don't think you fully addressed the claim that I'm making, which is this intuition that we have that it would be wrong to torture a dog for the sake of hearing its screams or something like that. Most of us have this kind of intuition. My question is, how can we explain this intuition except for the principle that it's wrong to cause massive amounts of pain and suffering to beings, even animals, for the sake of relatively trivial benefits like the pleasure of hearing them scream? So how are you going to explain that principle without,
Yeah, I would argue there's two senses of intuition pumping that's happening here. The first is that I think we heavily associate dogs with, like, man's best friend. Like, we've bred them to literally be domesticated animals that are friendly with humans, so the idea that you would be killing one, especially in a way where you're literally just doing it to, have some kind of, like, weird pleasure, I think that hits against that. But I think people also get similar feelings, funnily enough. I watched this unfold in a Twitch stream once where a bunch of people were abusing this robot that was walking back and forth. They were kicking it, it was falling over, and people were like feeling kind of sad. I'm sure people watch Blade Runner 2049. They felt sad when the one like stick lady got stepped on or whatever, and even though she's a robot, like we have intuitions for these things, but I don't know if that like tells us anything about the nature of the animal itself, because whenever we look historically, it seems like hunting developed as a strong thing that was intuitively correct from basically all of human society. I'm not aware of any like huge civilizations. I don't know how common it is that I guess Indians are vegetarian or vegan, but like for the most part, like every human civilization seems to have developed some form of like hunting or animal agriculture, and there wasn't this huge intuitive pushback against it.
I don't know if I'd say that.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
Nice.
I'm still not sure you fully addressed. So you addressed some like reasons why we have these intuitions, but you didn't explain why these intuitions don't show that the action is wrong.
Oh
that,
shit! I'm bronze.
I guess what precisely is it that makes torturing a dog for the sake of hearing its screams, or kicking a robot or something? What makes those actions wrong?
Well, I feel like the thing that's wrong is it feels like anytime somebody is engaged in some kind of like needless destruction, or is getting some kind of like pleasure out of seeing something else, either break or be in some kind of pain, I think that as people, that just kind of throws up a red flag that it's unlikely that somebody's going to do that to, an inanimate object or an animal, especially one that's bred to be like friendly with us, and not also do that same thing to other people. I think that's the thing that we just immediately kind of recoil from.
Okay. So I mean, to be clear, we put people who torture dogs in prison for many years. I think it's up to 7 years in some states. So you're saying the reason we do this is because it's indicative of some kind of cruel disposition that they might, behave in other ways, and other wrong ways to other humans. Is that fair to say?
Well, if you're asking me where the law comes from, I mean that's a complicated. But I would say
what would justify that putting people in prison for 7 years? I mean, maybe you think that we shouldn't put people in prison for 7 years who ruthlessly torture a dog for the sake of hearing their screams.
I mean, I would find more alignment with vegans there, in that I think it's strange to put people in prison for, torturing animals like dogs, but animal agriculture is acceptable. But people obviously have a lot of issues with that who are meat eaters. So, but yeah, I mean, I would argue that it's probably because of there's some kind of sociopathic tendency or disposition there where you're just beating on a thing to feel good about yourself, whether it was an inanimate object or a dog or a cat or whatever. I think most people would view that in a very reprehensible light. But I don't think it speaks to any kind of intrinsic moral value or moral character from the creature itself.
Okay, and
otherwise I would ask, why were so many different civilizations okay with developing hunting? How were they able to get past this built-in? You say we have a deep moral intuition against animal cruelty. Why were so many people okay with hunting for animals?
Yeah, I mean, I have to imagine that's.
I'm trying to do an AP build, and it's not.
We inflict on animals today. It's.
I don't have the attack
hunting for
speed
animals is nothing like the way that we, procure and consume animal products today. As I mentioned, factory farming is one of the greatest sources of suffering on the planet.
Oh, she's gonna go flying.
And I think that probably sufficiently explains the difference.
Do you think? I'm just curious, just real quick on that. Would you be okay with animal agriculture if it was I forget what they call torture-free farms, or
humanely raised.
Yeah, whatever, that kind of stuff. Is that an okay form of animal ag to you?
I think it would significantly reduce the badness of something like industrial animal agriculture. But I think there are a lot of problems with this today. I mean, first of all, there's no such thing as a humanely raised animal. At least it's very hard to find them and eat them multiple times a day. For one, if you purchase eggs, no matter if they're the pasture-raised eggs, you get them from your aunt's backyard or something. That it is almost 100% likely in the United States that this egg came from an egg-laying hen.
Oh God, I'm so dead!
Where the male chicks are mastered because they're just not. You don't need them to lay eggs in the egg-laying hen industry. So I mean, in practice, there's no such thing as a humanely raised animal product, at least completely humanely raised.
Oh God, I'm so.
I mean, when we think about the way that eating
so
animal
he's not
products
okay with it
affects our psychological attitudes towards beings that we think have some sort of moral value.
So we have an abundance of food on the planet, and we shouldn't eat it. Got it.
There have been psychological studies that show people who, consume meat.
We already have food shortages, man.
That you find tend to care less about the suffering of animals. They've done studies on this.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that? People that find the most humanely raised meat possible care less about the suffering of animals? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. So I can't remember exactly how the study worked, but they found people who claim to consume only humanely raised meat, and perform a few psychological evaluations and find that they're less likely to care about the suffering of animals. They're more careless about the suffering of animals, or callous to it.
Why do they eat more humanely raised products? I'm assuming they cost more then, no? Isn't that kind of weird? Or what was the explanation for that?
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure.
Okay.
But besides that point, I think
in
practice,
my God.
like I said, it's extremely hard to find humanely raised products in the real world. So,
dude, I hate fucking vegan arguments. Why would we tell our culture that one of the things that we can mass produce and feed on a global scale not to eat food? We can just talk about how fucked up it is how we treat animals and just ask for better conditions. But the better conditions we increase for animals, the more expensive the food's going to be. The demand to take care of our poor means that we're going to take care of something else in the environment. We just need to be more honest with that. And those poor people should feel a little more guilty for what they do. But that's... What the fuck?
You'd have to be extremely diligent, almost as much as a vegan, in how your effort to reduce the suffering you cause with your animal product choices.
Theoretically, if you could do it, though.
Sure. Yeah, that was the original question.
Because then my next question is going to be, it feels like then we're already closer in agreement on my end because you're putting them in some different category, because I don't think we would ever agree that there's a morally okay way to raise and eat humans. Right? So it seems like we're already putting animals in some different category, therefore saying it's okay in some ways to morally raise and consume them, no?
Again, I'm willing to concede certain facts about animals generating them having less moral status. I think that there are just still so many problems with the current...
That being said, my dog, when I get one, will have higher moral status than 90% of humans. Or 95% of humans. Well, it depends on how big my audience gets, you know what I mean? But I mean, my dog is going to be pretty fucking important to my life. All right, do we need an 80? We definitely need an ADC, so...
system that it's in practice, it's not something that's a real concern. For instance, I mean, most of the animals that are killed in the United States are babies. I mean, they're killed at a fraction of their natural lifespan. If the reason killing is wrong or death is bad is because it deprives a being of the future they would have otherwise had, then that seems like a seriously wrong action to take. And
Not if it feeds a bunch of kids.
They don't know this, but if you ate like a meat animal that came an animal product that was from an older animal, it doesn't taste as good. It's like a much tougher meat. Most people wouldn't enjoy it. So, yeah. I guess the point I want to just fully reiterate is that someone who is trying to like eat humanely raised products would have to be as diligent as a vegan, because they'd have to admit to be charitable with this argument, you'd have to admit that if you make a mistake and you accidentally eat, a fast food or something, or from a restaurant where you don't know what an animal product is, you'd have to admit that you've just done something that's somewhat equivalent to torturing a dog for the sake of hearing its screams. Yeah.
5 minutes.
Want to talk for 5? No, I'm just kidding. That was a 5-minute warning. Sorry, you said that eating an animal would be the equivalent of hearing a dog scream. Well, I feel like there's a big difference there, because the person eating the animal is engaging in like a biologically necessary function where we eat, and we need to eat to survive. Now, obviously, we don't need to eat animal products to survive, but I think that's a lot different than just torturing an animal for the sake of getting some kind of joyful response out of torturing the animal. I think that even when it comes to animal agriculture, this is the reason why like the PETA videos or whatever videos of animal ag are so effective, is because if people see somebody torturing an animal and all they see is like pain and suffering from the animal and somebody getting some kind of sick, twisted enjoyment out of it, even for an animal that we ordinarily eat, I think most people would be really uncomfortable with that. But I also, does it not bother you, or I guess how do you address or deal with the fact that in kind of like the animal kingdom, absolutely no moral systems or no moral treatment emerges from any of these animals either? So why would it be, for instance, unethical or immoral for a human to eat an animal?
We're just the best
but
hunters
it would be
around.
more ethical to leave that animal in the wilderness where another set of animals could kill it, often in kind of painful, excruciating ways, before they consume it.
Yeah, I mean, the first problem.
And
with this
also,
kind of
hold on. I should not have tabbed out like that. That was very rude of me in this match. But like, in the animal kingdom, they go after the babies because killing an adult's very hard. So they always go after the cubs. That's why like animals have to take care of their cubs so much. Like, hold on, yeah, dude. Like, even if we're sitting here mass producing things and killing the children, as terrible as that sounds, like, animals do the same thing. They go after the elderly, the sick, or the children. That's what they do. They go after stragglers because like the group is usually too strong. So like all we're doing is living out that scale on a larger number. Like, were we more okay with that scale when it was a group of hunter-gatherers going out and torturing the animals and gutting them in real life, and or because they got to run in a field before we killed them? Like, somehow that's better? I don't understand the argument here, dude. Oh, I'm so dead. Because nature is fucking metal? Exactly, dude.
For why animals don't have moral status is that when we look at our own human species, we find beings that are incapable of this kind of reciprocal moral behavior that
like conservatives. I'm so kidding. I'm just kidding. I'm so sorry. That was go ahead.
Todd Kuhn said you're morbidly obese.
And we still think that these beings have moral status. Infants,
what's up?
severely cognitively
Tell your
disabled
dad he's
people,
got a small penis.
The elderly, the senile. Not the elderly. The senile.
So I understand this argument. It kind of runs into like this kind of like name the trade place. Like I would make an ontological argument here. I would say that like mankind or people kind, I don't know what we call it now, but like humanity has like these qualities to it where a fully developed person that's as realized as you can be biologically would be able to do all these things. One of these things is have the capacity for thought and reason such that social contracts and moral systems emerge. Now, maybe every single member of that class, for some reason, a brain injury or some other type of developmental error, isn't able to do it, but as a class of people, like we would say that we have this thing, therefore we treat, you know, our moral status only kind of works if we grant it to every single person in that category. We can't like pick and choose people in the category because then the whole category itself becomes suspect. So I'm not fully convinced that just because some senile or very young children are incapable of reciprocating morals means that, well, that's the same thing as the whole animal kingdom, of all of which will never reciprocate morals. I don't find that argument very convincing.
Sure. And before I address,
Yeah.
before I address
Is
that,
my
I
dick
just wanna
3
point out
inches?
that
Nah,
the
dude.
view you're claiming is to be that you're claiming to be more intuitive is highly unintuitive. The fact,
It's
the claim
smaller.
that, you know, the
Smaller,
particular kind of
dude.
being a being belongs to
What's up, bitch?
determines
I
whether
missed
the
that
pain that they
so
experience
hard.
matters morally is highly unintuitive, I think, to most people. I mean, suppose you woke up tomorrow and you didn't know what you were, and all you felt was just the most extreme agony you've ever experienced. It's like an unreflective agony.
1.3,
You're not
now
thinking,
you're getting there,
wow, I'm in so
bro.
much pain right now. I'm rational and I'm in so much pain. No, it's just extreme agony. If you ask yourself, or say you find out you're a pig or something like this, I don't know how this would be possible. I guess maybe you're behind a veil of ignorance and you like step back or something. If you find out you're a pig, should we think, wow, I guess my suffering didn't matter at all? This just seems highly unintuitive. But I guess to address your point about
shit.
Wait,
know,
just real
belonging-
quick on the for the example. Again, I find this is a form of intuition pumping because it always feels like, imagine one day you wake up and you're just screaming in agony because you're part of a factory farm, and then the alternative reality is you could be, it's like
Damn.
Charlotte's Web, where you're on a farm and everybody's happy and the spiders and the pigs and everybody get along with each other. Well, like, I'm trying to imagine what's it like living as like, you know, a deer, and you wake up and there's like a leaf that's moving and you don't know if there's like 15 animals about to jump out and eat you, and that's literally every single day of your existence for your entire life until you get old enough that something finally catches up to you and eats you and you die.
True.
I don't know what, like, I mean, like, it's hard to even imagine, you know, what is it like? You know, if I think of like a cat or a dog, well, I'm a bad example because I do sit on the computer all day. But for most humans that like to go outside and see the sun and everything, like the idea of being locked up in a house all day seems horrible. But we consider that to be a more humane way to treat a cat than to let them roam the streets for a variety of reasons. So I understand we can intuition pump one way and say, well, this thing would definitely be bad. And it's like, I don't know. I don't even know what it's like to have an experience, you know, like an animal like that. And I certainly wouldn't, because there are other experiences that they have that would be totally not okay to me, but they seem to enjoy or they seem to live in naturally. So.
Yeah, I mean, you bring up the problem of wild animal suffering, which is interesting. I mean, there are obvious disanalogies between the
Give me
suffering
the
of wild
bird!
animals and the suffering we cause to animals on factory farms. I mean, for one, we cause the suffering to animals on factory farms. Animals in the wild, no moral agent is causing the suffering to another, to another being, another sentient being. So maybe that plausibly explains the difference. Another thing is maybe you just accept that, like, yeah, wild animal suffering is bad, and we should do what we can to prevent wild animal
What's up,
suffering without,
pussies?
without allowing some similarly bad action like destroying an ecosystem.
I almost got a
Yeah, so
goddamn
maybe that's
penta,
one way
bro.
you could explain that.
What's up, pussy? What you doing in here?
Does this argument?
Oh shit!
Okay, I'll make a quick comment. Can I give him the last? 'Cause I feel bad if I have the last one. I feel, does this argument not collapse into like a weird like antinatalist
Suck my
argument
dick!
where you can say, well, factory farming is bad because it introduces a lot more suffering into the
up,
world, and if you
dog?
just have like the wilderness as is, then there's going to be less suffering. But like,
Oh,
could
he
I make
dead
the
as
argument, for
fuck.
instance, like, well, I actually think it's super ethical if you eat only cats because they're obligate
Getting out of
carnivores. So for
there.
every one cat you eat, you're actually
Whoa.
saving like 1,000 other animals. And then could you just not run this ad infinitum until like, the larger creature you eat, the less
I
harm
got
from suffering there is,
Flash
until like all the
Eat
animals
on,
on the planet are
dude.
dead and nobody's suffering anymore. And then you can have the last crack. Yeah.
I'm not sure I follow that. I'm wondering, could you repeat?
Well, because cats have to eat other animals to survive generally, right? They're obligate carnivores, carnivores, not carnivals. Some cats are fun, but not that fun. So I'm just saying that, like, would it not be more ethical to kill or eat animals that only have to eat other animals? Like, if I eat one cat, that cat's not eating 100 other animals, so I'm reducing the suffering. And then could you just not run that
What
same
up,
thing with
bro?
every larger creature until you've
Oh,
eaten
fuck.
or eradicated everything on the planet so there's no more suffering? Like a form of, like, animal anti-natalist argument.
Yeah, I mean, again, it seems implausible that you'd be able to do anything like this without destroying the ecosystem. But I mean, it's an interesting question whether we should, you know, reduce the number of natural predators
Oh, no.
in a population. I think it's kind of it's irrelevant to the question of whether we should be causing massive amounts of pain and suffering to sentient beings for trivial benefits. But it is an interesting question. I'm just not sure how it fully relates to the factory farming question. And I guess, yeah, I mean, the last point I just want to emphasize is that the amount of suffering we cause to factory farmed animals in a few years is probably equivalent to the amount of suffering that every human on Earth has ever experienced in the history of humanity.
Had to flash that,
This is just
bro.
strictly
Oh, I
run
walked
numbers.
right into
And you
that.
look at the neuroscientific
I'm
data
so
that
bad,
suggests
dude.
that
I killed
non-human animals, especially
everybody.
land mammals, experience roughly the same amount of pain and pleasure that humans do, given the same amount of aversive stimuli. that fact makes veganism such a heavy moral imperative. I think it's an interesting question whether animals have a right to life.
What,
as
Logan?
humans do,
What you
whether
want,
it's right-
boy?
it's permissible to humanely raise and kill an animal. The fact of the matter is that this is just not how the world is right now, and people should be vegan. Contingently, Destiny, you should be vegan until we develop cultivated meat, better plant-based meat. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Fuck!
Thank you, Cole. And thanks again to all our student debaters and Stephen for those 4 rounds. We're going to have
There
a
you
few
go.
questions from
We
the
got it.
audience. If you have a question, please line up.
Actually, wait, real quick. You could just take this mic down there if you want. You just have to take it back.
Just
to
so
the
you
down a
know,
little bit, and then you can
bro.
ask your first one, and I'll repeat it. Go ahead.
There is no
Yeah.
DoorDash out here, dog. I haven't ordered DoorDash. I'm eating health food, bro. Going to the gym? I can barely lift my arm.
Okay. All right, speak
Oh.
loudly. Go ahead.
Should I start from the beginning or should I?
Yeah, you
just
said
keep
in
going?
my debate with Ben Shapiro, one of the largest
So you got a
concessions.
concession that Trump is graded on a curve. I agree with this proposition, but I wanted to ask what this kind of means for, in the sense, the future of politics. Will there be, if
Are you
in a
still
sense,
alive?
the right ends up producing
I'm
a
eating
similar
normal
candidate
food?
or a candidate on the level of Trump? What will things look like for the upcoming 2028 election or the midterms in the 2026 upcoming election, and specifically targeted towards voters that are disinterested or disengaged with
I need
politics
fast
just
food
because
to
they
live?
see how much Trump has made
I
things
don't
very
eat
trivial.
that shit, bro.
So when you
We don't
ask
have
like
fast
where
food
the
out
future
here.
of politics is going, the reason why it's hard to see beyond where
There's
we're at
a
right now is because I don't know
McDonald's.
how much we can possibly do, and I don't know how much damage we can undo. So I think the issue that you run into is when you tell somebody that they can behave in a certain way, you set a new standard for how they'll behave. And if you allow somebody to push this boundary, if we're from 0 to 100 and the boundary's normally at 50, if they push it like all the way to 99, you're going to have to fight
That's
to bring
one
it back
dead
to like
bitch.
95, let alone back to the 50 where you would want it to be. So Republicans have just been unhinged
Jesus
for a long
Christ.
time. You know, they talk about how evil it is that we call conservatives fascists now, and I remember Michael Savage and Glenn Beck and Rush Limbaugh and Sean Hannity and Billy Cunningham and all these. Well, yeah, it's like screaming like communist, socialist, or whatever. So, like, the issue is that, like, now obviously I do it in a far more inflammatory way. So, you know, saying basically like, well, if you're going to act like this, then the other
I
side
don't
could act
know
like
if
this.
they
And I don't think
do,
you want
bro.
that. So maybe we should all like
But I
take
like
a step
to
back
hope
and
they
go
do.
back to where we're all being like nice to each other, because that's a better world for everybody. But we have to find a way to one is to it really it's such a boring topic, but it goes back to this misinformation thing, because something that my one of the debate opponents brought up earlier related to the rhetoric thing is, well, the other side thinks that the liberals have already done this, and that's an issue. That's a fact-based issue.
Yeah.
And as long as one side has been able to hijack like what is real and what is true in so many people's minds, if I can invent the past for you, I can justify any future I want, because I can show you these things have happened and these people have justified it. Therefore, you're justified in acting the same. So I would hope that politics
Whoa.
somewhat goes back to normal, but it's going to require half the country to completely wake up from the Delulu land they've been living in under Trump 2 that we're only not even 1 year into. And then it's going to require
Nice.
us to acknowledge as a country there's a lot of foreign players that have a big motivation in how our politics plays out, and there's a lot of bad incentives that exist right now in the United States that the average person can't navigate our media landscape and expect to see what's real and true, because we just don't naturally select for that. We select for things that make us feel good.
AI is gonna make that
Okay,
worse
thanks.
too, dude. Why does
Sure.
my boy always got the
should've
good
signed up for this.
answers?
Hi, Stephen. Thanks so much. So I'm not a vegan, but I was kind of surprised about some of these answers, and I kind of want to go down at least one of the answers that you gave for
Sure.
some of this. So you seem to privilege human sentience and qualify it with abstract reasoning
Oh,
over
God.
phenomenological consciousness. And the type of consciousness where we know is conserved in animals, where the nociceptors are the same, the thalamocortical loops are the same, the limbic systems are the same, the mechanics of misery are the same. The
Oh
inference
my
that
god.
the capacity for suffering is conserved, you don't seem to actually address these sorts of arguments around why shouldn't we care about this. You sort of answer, Well, they're not
Why
human.
should we care?
I mean, there seems to be something different in kind to the human mental experience than there is to the animal mental experience. I mean, we can point to a lot of similar structures and a lot of similar, underlying mechanisms, but for some reason, things like culture, things like morality, things like, complex thought and speech have just never emerged. So it seems like there's significantly something different in kind there. Now, would I say that there's like a 100% chance that there's no conscious experience happening that is happening in a mind like ours? I mean, I can't say that with certainty, but I think that the vegans overstate their argument in saying, well, there's enough similarity here that for sure they definitely get more consideration.
Well, to be fair, it doesn't seem like the similarities that is being stated there isn't the fact that they're the same or they're able to do tax code or
but you're trying to take the claim of human to say that we should treat them the same.
Suffer is a thing that is conserved. And the fact that things are different and there's something different in the complexity of our behavior doesn't seem to be warrant for torturing people.
I mean, maybe not. I guess you could explore that further. I would argue that suffering is generally bad for people, but I think that we just kind of like take that for granted because of how our lives exist today. Like, I mean, I could hypothesize like the ideal optimal human life would be at 10 years old, you continually take enough morphine or something until eventually you die in like some euphoric blissed out state of drug overdosedness. And, if you're just graphing somebody's life in terms of like optimal happiness, it's probably about as happy as you could be. But I don't think that would be a very satisfying answer to a lot of people in terms of satisfying like a person's life. Like, I don't think that we measure like pain and suffering and like happiness and joy on just this like very collapsed axis of like, are you in pain or not in pain?
Well,
so
it seems like what we. Oh,
okay.
Yeah, sure.
Oh, sure. Or you can do one last thing, I guess, or I feel bad. There's a lot of I shouldn't have said that.
What we do instead of like a very simple description of what you just said is we care about the capacity for the experience there and put that the foremost what we consider. So if we learned that like some action or some peanut butter is not causing cancer to kids, it's that knowledge that actually invites the moral obligation to do something about it. It's the capacity to actually inflict diminishing well-being on some other.
Oh yeah, dude, going vegan is not going to cure the problem, man.
Thanks, I appreciate it.
We have too many people.
Hi, Destiny. My name's Arik. I'm a bit of a fan, but my question is, since we can use history to help direct our future, where do you see the root of the collective psychosis of the right? Like, how do we prevent another Trump 30, 40, or whatever years from now? What was wrong with our country that led to all of this? This is like a question that will probably be studied for a long time, and there's going to be people way smarter than me that have answers to this. But like, I would argue that a big thing that happened was, I would say in a way, like a microcosm or a macrocosm. Like the argument that I had earlier of like, well, you don't want to be just like them, that's like a microcosm of I think what's happened with liberals and conservatives over the past like 30 years of this country, to where liberals have been expected to govern both like morally and in a way where they can communicate the rightness of what they're doing, and conservatives have just been expected to kind of show up and then just like do their song and dance, and however they govern, who actually cares? Although now they don't even have to show up and dance. Now they just get on social media or they hide on military bases and they tweet unhinged stuff. So for example, like when I look like historically, if you want to talk about the economy, really if you want to talk about anything, I don't think it's an accident that we had a massive economic collapse at the end of the Bush regime, where we had the 2007-2008 global financial crisis, and then Obama has to come in at the tail end of that, clean all of that up, right the American economy, and then get everything working again. And then for some reason, after 2 terms of that, then Trump gets to come in, right off all of that. Even though things like his illegal immigration was higher than Obama's ever was before COVID hit, his budget deficits were increasingly past where Obama's was when Obama left office. None of that mattered. COVID came in. His response was terrible. I'm not saying it should have been a perfect response, but like, it was
in my life. I will never.
Ways. He lied about the number of infections.
Yeah,
he constantly downplayed
God,
he admitted to downplaying it. And then after Trump was gone, then a liberal, Biden, had to come in, clean things up, kind of like right the ship, get things going again. And then now a Republican president is coming again and is like making a mess of things. When you have a world where one side is expected to lead and govern and has to act in a moral way, and the other side gets to come in and just knock everything over, and we're not allowed to tell ourselves an honest history of what happened at the end of the day, you you're destroying people's ability to learn and to actually have informed decisions going forward about what they want their leadership to look like. Because the collective delusion we have to live in is, I would argue, I'm not trying to argue too much for the other speaker because it's weird that they're not up here, but like this, they say like, well, you guys need to be more civil. It's not fair when you do the same things they're doing. I would argue that that thought process has driven liberal politics for the past 2 decades, and it's why we're here now, because we've allowed the other side to live in this delusional fantasy land where they think they've governed appropriately, like the Democrats have, but they haven't. They've made a mess of things constantly, and we're constantly expected to pretend otherwise, and I think that's why we're where we're at right now.
Thank you.
Hey, Destiny.
Hi.
So we agree on a lot, so I want to do something a little spicy.
Damn it! Bless
so
her, the
in
cheesemakers,
vegan debate,
exactly, dude.
It seems to me that you're removing animals like entirely from your moral framework. So I'm wondering, how do you justify animal cruelty laws? It seems the way you did it in the debate was by saying that it predicts behavior in the future, but it seems to me that that's not really how our criminal law works. Like, we don't try to criminalize things because we predict that someone will do some negative action in the future.
Oh, wait, that's what
I don't know if I would
laws
justify
are.
animal cruelty laws. There's a lot that goes into that. It's an intuitive thing that a lot of people just have a feeling about. But I am who I am. So, but I don't know. Like, I think, like, I always make fun of people that are meat eaters that get like really mad about Cecil the lion or some dog or cat being, killed when they're totally content eating chicken nuggets and cheeseburgers all day. I think it's a huge hypocrisy from some people. There's also laws against, sodomy all over the place, and there's probably a lot of laws that I couldn't justify personally. So, yeah.
Okay, so you don't agree with animal cruelty laws?
I don't know. Like, if insofar as they might be predictive of crazy future behavior, maybe. I don't know if we ever have any other law like that. I'm not sure. I guess I don't think. But yeah, I'm kind of indifferent to all of that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, that's consistent. Thanks.
For our final question.
Gotta save the best for last.
Hi.
Hello, Stephen. Thank you for visiting us here today at Yale. And I'd like to ask you, if the average American suddenly became
I've hit critical
significantly
mass.
smarter and more emotionally intelligent, how do you think political communication and strategy would have to adapt? Also, how do you think the current American populace, mainly non-politicians, would look back at the current administration's actions and rhetoric and put that down in the history books?
Man, that's a hard one. If we all, Joe Rogan and Candace Owens would immediately lose 90% of their audience, I would say, is the first thing. No. I don't know. That's a hard one. If everybody, because it's also kind of a selfish thing, because obviously we all imagine ourselves to be the enlightened ones, in terms of what everything would, everybody would look like me or think like me. The thing, I'll speak about it in this way. The thing that I think that we lose the most is that I don't necessarily think everybody needs to agree with me on everything, but there are some things that we should agree on, like ways to arrive at epistemically sound positions, being able to evaluate news and stuff, and we should be able to have an argument over things where the conversation is rooted in
I say this and people act like I'm crazy.
Facts, and then we can have a debate on where things should go from
don't
there.
go together? No, they do not.
I think it's an interesting conversation about housing, or COVID is one that I bring up a lot, right? Were the lockdowns too aggressive? Should there have been vaccine mandates or not? I think that there are really compelling arguments between intellectually honest people on both sides of that conversation. There's something to be said for can the government really tell me that I have to inject something into my body? That's a statement that a lot of people just assume is, well, no, I'm completely anti-government mandates, but that's not true. If there was a virus that, lurked silently in your body for 2 weeks and then had a 90% kill rate, I think the most libertarian person in the world would say you absolutely need to mandate vaccines, or I should be able to kill you if I think you're infected. People would go to that level. But then, when the disease becomes less significant, people start to pretend their principles are changing when it's actually more like an outcome-oriented question. So, yeah, I think the biggest thing that we've lost by not being a little bit more, I don't know if you call them emotionally or intellectually intelligent about things, but we've lost the ability to debate policy, and we're just constantly getting stuck on debating reality. Is it Ukraine's fault that Russia invaded, rather than, what are the reasons why both sides might be fighting with each other, and what should we be doing to alleviate those reasons? Or, is Israel a bloody apartheid state that's only interested in genociding as many Arabs as possible? Or, is there a complicated interplay between the history of both of these people that other players internationally have fit into in a negative sense in both sides, and what can we do to alleviate the suffering, especially on the Palestinian side? I think I would imagine, looking back on this era, the biggest disagreement or the biggest issue is that you're not having real conversations about literally anything. All of my debate that I had 3 days ago with a couple lawyers about the Venezuelan boat strikes, one guy was screeching that shipwrecks aren't blown up ships, they're just ships that get wrecked in Pirates of the Caribbean. They crash on rocks. And I'm like, this isn't a real conversation. This is the most delusional stuff I've ever heard in my entire life. And every single conversation
is like that. You know, why
Oh my
did
God,
you
this
pardon
game
this
is
one
going
guy who's
nowhere.
this crypto billionaire? I don't even know who you're talking about. And then Trump just moves on. So yeah, I think that's the biggest issue, is our inability to even have a back and forth on things. Because I'm not right on everything, just like 99% of things. But like I recognize that there are people that could disagree with me on the other side, and then we could have like an interesting convo back and forth, rather than us having to argue. You know, like is the Earth flat, or did we go to the moon, or is the French government really putting hits out on Candace Owens, or is Macron's wife actually another husband? And it's so stupid. Yeah, and these are the most popular podcasters on the planet. It's really sad, I think. Yeah.
Beautifully said. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Fuck! Die! They all just stopped attacking!
All right. We're going to end it here for tonight. On behalf of Yale Effective Altruism, I want to thank Stephen Manel for coming to campus and debating with us. Thank you as well to our debaters, Hassan Kadir, Sherry Huang, Hannah Owens-Pierre, Cole Haynes, and to our moderator, Giuseppe Di Massa, and to all the volunteers who helped with this event. Thank you for coming, thank you for listening, and engaging with the arguments. Please exit the hall calmly so we can hear the room and break up down the setup. Have a good night.
And without thought, if I were out there, this would be over in an instant.
Okay, I mean, it was a pretty good debate. It's a lot more proper debate. You know, no one got mad at each other. It was a good time.
It's smaller than the diagram.
Jesus, man. My God. Oh my God.
Feels good. Never said I was infallible.
Oh. That really fucked me up. Oh man, I hurt so bad. Oh, all right, man. Well, I got a video to go react to that I plan on getting out there. Oh, another DPS threat seems to be the norm. Oh, my arms. God damn it, dude. Oh. All right, guys. Oh, I'm dying. I'm going to go pop like 4 Tylenol, eat lunch, and then go. It's snowing, so I got to go fucking shovel that shit, dude. Oh my God, I'm dying. Oh, all right, man. Love you guys. Peace.